Welcome, everyone. I'm Paul Schoenig Jr. of Kicks Clothing. This is episode number 2 of Kicks Back, where I share stories of people in business and entrepreneurship. Today I have Ryan Thayer of Vintage Lacrosse brand. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. All right, we're going to get right into the questions here. All right, Ryan, I guess tell me a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, your dreams kind of growing up, and how it's led to kind of where you are today with Vintage.
It's pretty crazy story all over the place. But I grew up in Salve. Was a big baseball fan back in the day. That was my thing. I wanted to be a baseball player, and that kind of changed once I hit high school. You know, big guys don't really make very good baseball players, so I kind of shifted to tennis of all things. Tennis got me the scholarship at Canisius.
Okay.
Kind of did my thing with that. And after school, or after college, I should say, I graduated, came back, started working with kids, coaching tennis, and getting my degree to be a teacher. And one thing led to another. Got married, and my brother-in-law was a lacrosse player, and we kind of got talking, and that kind of brought us into the whole lacrosse world. I never played the game of lacrosse, loved it, and we're just kind of looking for some things to kind of do. And I sat down with Eric one day, and we kind of built ER lacrosse out of that. And then ER kind of was what kind of led to what's going on with Vintage at the moment, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, and if you guys don't know, ER Lacrosse is a lacrosse tournament, and the first year you started was in what, 2013, 14?
I think it is to 2013. I think this is our seventh year of
Okay.
the Upstate Lax Jam. Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you decide to start Vintage Lacrosse? And I guess kind of explain what Vintage is and how did you make it a reality?
Vintage started basically about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was finished coaching tennis at Marcellus. I switched jobs, and I was kind of looking for something to do after the lacrosse tournament was done, something to kind of bide my time with. Eric and I talked about like making some apparel and doing some things, and we didn't want to do the prototypical kids t-shirts and apparel. For that, we were kind of looking for something else, and I started kind of posting these old pictures here and there just to see what was out there. And I posted the picture of Bacharach Helmet that's sitting here, and it kind of caught fire. People were loving that photo. And I said, well, what if we threw that up on a sweatshirt or on a shirt, and maybe that's something we can kind of push with. And that kind of like sparked the whole thing with Vintage. We kind of, ran with it from there. And, that led to me buying old lacrosse sticks. People were asking me to find lacrosse sticks for them, things that they hadn't seen since college. And I started my lax picking and going out and finding these sticks and kind of getting these back to the collectors who had them in the 70s and the 80s. And everyone has that mom that threw their stuff out in high school or just kind of cleaned out and didn't think of it. And now everyone wants their gear back. So it kind of turned into a hobby of just kind of finding these things and returning them back to the players.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see. What's a kind of typical like work day for you at Vintage? I know you said you teach. How do you kind of mix that in? I know you have a couple kids, so it's got to be
it's hectic. 2 kids, wife that works a lot, and being a full-time teacher. Basically, I'm up at roughly 6 in the morning. 6:45 is my first social media post. I'm hitting Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm putting out my first post of the day. As I'm walking out the door, I send that out. Also, this is time where maybe I'm responding back to some emails or just kind of comments in my comment section. I get to work. I work at the Syracuse Charter School, the Syracuse Academy of Science Assistantship. I teach kindergarten. That keeps me on my toes about lunchtime. Again, maybe I'm going to put out a second post for Vintage, or again, I'm hitting up comments, following up emails. About 4:45, I'm home. That's feed the kids, do all that, do the homework, take them to gymnastics, run all those things, crazy. And then around 7:30, 8 o'clock, it starts to kind of slow down. Kids start to transition to go to bed. And then from 9 to midnight I'm right down in the basement. I'm, taking pictures of equipment. I'm blacks picking. I'm looking for stuff. I'm social media. And probably like 12:30 is when I'm kind of like lights out. And, it's a side hustle, but I love doing it.
Yeah. How do you go about finding like vintage or old lacrosse gear and equipment like this?
The internet is a wonderful tool. I mean, you can go on and just search in different search engines and go here and there, and the stuff just seems to come up. We do a lot of thrift stores, which are great to kind of pick things up. But lately, collectors have just come to us and been like, I have this garage full of stuff. What do you think? And me and my daughter Addison, who's 9 years old, who loves it, we show up and we look at what you have, and a lot of times we just end up buying collections of stuff, which has been great.
Now, is that just through like kind of word of mouth that people kind of heard about you looking for the equipment just through the connections you've made through social media? Is that?
Yeah, I have like a huge following on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where a lot of people are either offering up things that they have, or is where I'm trying to find stuff or track down certain heads for people. But that and Instagram have been my two hotspots where it comes to here's what we have or here's what I'm looking for, and then I kind of search from there.
Okay. Now, here's a kind of side question, but what was your first experience / memory with Kicks Clothing?
That's a great question, because Eric and I were getting the Lax Jam together, and we're looking for vendors, and we're looking for sponsors, and he says to me, we got to get Kicks here, Kicks Clothing. I'm like, what do you mean? What's Kicks Clothing? And he's like, everyone in the high school and everyone around Camillus has these sweatshirts or these hoodies and everything on. And I'm like, you're right. It says Kicks right on the back of the hoodie. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna track this guy down. I'm gonna get him here. And I think we were playing phone tag and emails and back and forth. And lo and behold, I get you. And you came up for the Lax Jam and totally didn't expect. I'm waiting for these big trucks to roll in. Like, Kicks is here. We're right. And you kind of strolled up. You're like, yeah, I'm Paul. I'm with Kicks. I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm kind of looking for the rest. You're like, I'm gonna do some giveaways, and I got my tent, and this is gonna be great. And I was like, all right, okay, and I'm like, and it was that first year. I remember the kids just storming your tent. You're giving out headbands and this stuff like this and that, and I know that's the first time we kind of met. And I know you did all our ER shirts for us and the vintage shirts, and this just kind of worked pretty cool.
Yeah. What's the most memorable experience you've had so far doing vintage? I know there's probably a number of memories, but what would you say is a top memory for you?
Finding stuff for collectors is one of the things I love doing. I had a guy at a tournament. I got an M1 head for him, and he, kind of went to tears at the tournament over it because I found that head that he had been missing. But a couple months ago, I posted a picture of a player on LinkedIn, and the same thing. He hit me up and said, hey, you posted this picture of me. Thank you very, very much. I guess he was having a rough go of it, and all his ex-teammates saw this picture of him. And they were hitting him up and like, hey, do you remember that game? I remember this, and you had 3 goals and this and that. And he said, I was sitting in my office in tears that I forgot about that time in my life, and all my teammates just hit me up, and we were talking, and I actually brought more people back into my life right now, and I get that every day where these players connect with these pictures, and it just, it's great. I tell my wife these stories, and she sobs telling these stories, and sometimes that's more powerful than, getting these rare sticks and doing those things. But
yeah, I think the big thing with it that because I've been following you is with vintage, and even with what I'm doing. It's about the memories and bringing back those memories, and you can't really put a price to that.
Absolutely.
And I just think it's really cool, and I think there's a huge value to that, and that's why I think vintage is going to continue to grow, and I think there's always going to be that looking back at those fond memories, and that's really important.
Absolutely.
So, the prop here that you brought, can you talk a little bit about this?
This is the Bacharach Helmet. This is what kind of this is the picture I kind of put up of this helmet, which kind of spurred everything that ran to the logo. Darren and me in Philadelphia, my graphic designer, was the one that made the vintage logo, and this was the inspiration for everything. People saw this helmet and gravitated to it and said, that helmet was awful. I got concussions from that helmet, but it was such a great time, and I loved it, and it just started bringing back the memories of that. So much to where I actually am friends with the great-great-grandson of the Bacharachs, and he got a hold of me and was like, I love what you're doing, keeping our name going, and getting it out there, and all those memories. And back in the day, it was Lax World and Bacharach were like the two places that you could order stuff from. And everyone has this kind of kindred connection with Bacharach.
Okay.
And these bucket helmets, every time I see them.
Now, was this one of the first kind of helmets that came into the lacrosse world? I mean...
They had the leather helmets back then. I mean, Bacharach's been around since 1913.
Okay.
And they kind of had the leather football style helmets, and then they slowly started to transition and make these helmets. And this was kind of the hot rod of helmets back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, until that Cascade and Maverick took over and kind of started doing the helmets that we're seeing today. But this was it. But it was only one option, so it was pretty much that, and that's what kind of attracted everyone to the
now.
Now,
where was Bacharach, or where was their base? Do you know?
Bacharach basically they had their flagship building in Maryland. Okay. They were basically Maryland based, and what he would do is he'd go around and come up to the Indian reservations, and he was getting a lot of wood sticks and a lot of things like that and bringing it down. And the lacrosse community in Maryland was eating this up. They loved what he was doing and bringing all those sticks down, and he just kind of built from there. But
okay, what's the biggest / best ticket item that you've ever came across picking, whether it's a helmet or a stick? What would you say? I mean, it doesn't maybe have to be money wise, but maybe it was something that really stuck out. Like you were talking about a photograph that really hit home with someone. What would you say that would be for you?
Two ways to answer this. One was I found a PL60. I found actually two PL60s. Very, very rare, right in Rochester. I drove up, picked those up. A lot of people don't ever really see those. And the Brian Edge, which are clear sticks. Again, I love when people tell me, you're never going to find these sticks. They don't exist. They're not out there. Mm-hmm. And I kind of find it as a personal challenge. I found those very, very rare. But like I talked about earlier, this M1, this Brian Magic Series M1 head, not really worth too much. I had it at the tournament when we were vending, and this old player came up to me and was in tears. He's like, I can never find this head. You have it. And it was funny. His wife had money and was like, go ahead. You can get it. You can get it. And I'm like, yeah, here. I ended up, giving him the head, and he came over and he hugged me twice. And then as he's walking away, his wife put his arm around him and hugged him, and I'm sitting there like, this hunk of plastic that, I found is making like people's lives just that much, great, and I love it. But there's a lot of those big ticket items that are out there, and I love striking and finding a PL60 and an Edge Ice, but
yeah, it's really cool to see you doing in the lacrosse world. I don't think you really see it too much. And then I guess one of the last questions I have is, what are your thoughts on the future for vintage?
I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I would love, the PLL. Mike Rabel, Paul Rabel, if you're watching this, hit me up. The Gate Brothers, Tom Marichek, all those guys. I love to collaborate. I love to do things. But right now, what I'm just going to keep doing, I'm just putting the content out. I'm going to keep finding these pieces, maybe a hat, a shirt here and there, but slow and steady, and I'm just going to keep pumping out and just doing what I'm doing. I'm just loving the game and just loving what we're doing here.
And you're going down to LexCon in a few weeks, which will be a big networking time for you, which is pretty cool, so I can't wait to see that. And then I guess the last thing is, where can people find you or connect with you on the internet? I know you kind of mentioned it before, but maybe give the handles of where people can.
Yeah, all my everything that I run from is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Right now, it's at Vintage Lax Brand. I have all those sites up. I'm also Ryan Thayer on LinkedIn. I do a lot of work through LinkedIn, which is pretty good. I do have a TikTok if you want to check it out for some videos for the younger crowd. That's out there as well. In terms of selling, I'm on Sideline Swap as ER Lax. I'm on eBay. Just if you ever look for anything, just DM me through Vintage Lax Brand, and I'd love to get stuff for you, or even just chat. So
yeah, if you're looking for vintage lacrosse stuff, he's your man. So that's episode number 2. Thank you, Ryan, and appreciate it.
Awesome.